My side of the story. My side of the story.
By the way, we are not blaming our parents for how we are emotionally, or are we? Please let me know. We need to decide, okay? We need to decide if we are blaming them or not, or it's just the environment that we grew up in. Please let me know. But let me tell you something. Have you ever noticed, ever since we grew up, like growing up, not ever since we grew up, yeah, ever since we grew up, because, you know, growing from age 10 to age 20 is very slow. But growing from age 20, ndo sasa ugonge 30, my friend, hiyo kitu, it runs like a, you know, like a boda, like you're on nduthi to 30. Kama sahi mimi naona hivi nasikia nakimbia mbio natoka Siaka. Okay? So, this is my side of the story kama kawaida, and this is a solo episode. As always, make sure you interact with us on social media platforms at My Side of the Story on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. But other than that, today, of course, we are talking about our African homes and how we were brought up. Let me tell you, growing up in Africa as a child was very, very interesting, eh? Very interesting. Me personally, kwanza grow up Ushago. Let me just tell you the truth. And growing up in Ushago, it shape in the best ways possible. And I have one of the best memories ever. Alafu nikakuja kwa city. Of course, life is very, very different. But one thing I know that I will never forget, nilifika hivi Nairobi, nikaingia private school. Sikuwa nimeenda for 1 year in school. And my life just changed, okay? But we're not here to talk about me. We're just here to talk about you. And today I want us to just talk about these things that really affected us as children. And it's also spilling over into our adult life, you know, because some of these things were very messy. Some of the things that really happened to us as children, maybe we were raised by relatives, they were very, very messy. Maybe you can interact with us on the comment section by telling us what are some of those things that you went through, or some of those personalities that you still carry up to today. Last time tuliongelea kuhusu generational curses. This time we're talking about our African homes, and some of them were very, very toxic. Some of our parents are very toxic. Some of our grandparents are very toxic. But we also have to discuss about this. Ndio? Yeah. Personally, growing up, was I allowed to express my feelings? No. By the way, me personally growing up, on the record, I did not grow up with parents, and then I grew up with people who were relatives to my dad. So personally, I really didn't express my feelings. I was very, very scared. If you hear me right now and you look at me when I was younger, even my younger self would tell me that, you know, but I'm just, you know, very expressive. I just like to tell people no, you know, off the get-go. But no, I was not able to express my emotions. As a matter of fact, the only way I would express my emotions was through crying. And I know that is something most of us, by the way, right now we are going through. Most of us cry. Naonanga pale social media mnasema mimi ukinishautia naanza kulia. That is so me. Like, let me tell you guys, growing up, if I was shouted at, ama kama nimefanya makosa, I would cry my eyes out, let me tell you. Yeah, so I was not very expressive. I was not a talkative child. Very quiet. They even thought maybe mimi ni mgonjwa. I have some weird disability, but I was just scared of expressing my emotions. What happened when I cried as a child? I would go and lock myself in my room. But then there was a time I would even go and hide under the bed. Sijui vile nyinyi mulikuwa mna what happened during that time. But I remember most of the times when your parent has shouted at you or they have lectured you, most of the times parents used to lecture you, or they beat you up really serious, you know. And even when they beat you up, they still don't want you to cry. So unashangaa unafaa kuchapwa ukiwa umenyamaza and you're not crying, and the pain was very real. And sometimes some of those things you've done, maybe umeekelewa, or maybe it's just something that you made as a mistake. You know, kids are allowed to make mistakes because they're kids, they're growing up. And I hope that is not the same behavior we are going to transfer to our children. It's like a GPS map. Have you ever realized when you make a mistake, a GPS map is not going to shout at you. It's just going to redirect you. And that is the same energy we need to transfer to our kids. Once you make a mistake, you're not actually supposed to be shouted at. Of course, you're supposed to be correct. You know, there's a difference between correcting and abuse. There's a very fine line between correcting a child and abusing a child, okay? Like, there's a very sad case that I had the other day. A parent actually beat up a kid to a point where they, you know, alim off. So you know that let me tell you, I really wish ningekuanga kwa prisons board, because ningekuanga na deal na watu kama hao very seriously. Anyway, let's continue. Were emotions respected or dismissed? By the way, guys, growing up, emotions zako zilikuwanga respected or dismissed. They always saw you as a child. Many African homes saw children as just children. So even if you expressed yourself, that emotion was just dismissed. It's not just me. I'm speaking for like 10,000, 20,000, even millions of generations in Africa who grew up. You cannot really express yourself. You cannot say anything that is wrong with you. And that is how even most kids were abused in families. You know, they were assaulted, they were essayed, and they could not say anything because you are not allowed to talk. Your feelings are not respected, or what you're saying is respected. That's why the moment you shout at your parent, it's like umemchapa. Oh, unataka kuniua. Okay. This happened to almost everyone in this particular scenario. And it's very sad because I always say, as parents, we need to do better. As parents, we need to change how we treat our kids. As parents, we need to respect our children. You know, there's a very big difference between you being a mother to your kid, you being motherly, you being a mother, and you being a parent. You need to listen to your children when they're saying something. Of course, kids will always have opinions, and some of them, they're just being kids, okay? But when they're having a conversation with you, you really need to listen because that's the only time they can tell you. And have you ever realized, most of the times we never used to be close with our parents. Hatukuanga very close with our parents. African parents, atunaambia an African parent, I love you. How? In this society, you're telling your African parent, I love you. They used to find it so weird, like, you love me? You know, hizo vitu zilikuwa in movies, in American movies, in telenovelas, but it was not in an African home, in an African setting. What our parents knew is look for food, raise us, make sure we go to school, and hoping that they're doing a good job. And you know, there's no perfect manual to being a good parent or a perfect parent. They are all trying. And I feel like even the firstborns who are watching this video, those who are deputy parents, they really played a big role in raising their siblings, yeah? But African homes were like that. No feeling, most of their feelings were not respected, okay? And I'm speaking for millions and millions of people. I feel like you feeling hard, like right now your kid can tell you, mom, I don't feel hard in this house, or I feel like you're not listening to me. That is now. Back then, if you say something like that, they will just dismiss it, okay? And being strong was not something that you were told. In any African setting, if you are an African child, an African son or an African daughter growing up in a homestead, being strong was just something that has, hiyo ni kitu wewe unajua. It's something that you need to know. It's not something that will be told to you, or it will be taught to you, or it will be guided. No. And then you remember, even when we were growing up, there was no one who really listened to us. We had nobody to talk to, you know. And that is why things like therapy in Africa is still a very huge thing. Like, you go to therapy, like, you're not strong enough, you know. But strong was an unspoken rule to us when we were young. You just have to be strong for yourself, but nobody's gonna tell you. And strength looked like keeping quiet, going to cry, crying yourself to sleep. If you're growing up in a homestead where maybe you are living with relatives, crying yourself to sleep was strength to them. But you see, being strong was an unspoken rule to you as an African child. So I feel like that is something that off the get-go you needed to know, you know. Yeah. Being strong mean in our home, as I've said earlier, following the previous statement, being strong is crying yourself to sleep, you know. When you're beaten, you don't react. But sometimes when you react, ukichapwa and you react, you're being disrespectful, you know. And a lot of parents, especially the older generation, they're like, hey, huyu mtoto amekuongelesha hivyo. I cannot allow my kid to talk to me like that. You see? So being strong was ilikuwa viewed in a very, and I'm sorry to say, in a very, how can I say this manner? Old way of thinking manner. We know some of our uncles walikuwa na tabia mbaya sana. Or am I lying? Some of our uncles, some of our aunties, some of the children of our aunties and uncles walikuwa na tabia mbaya sana. And I know if you were to speak, or people were given seats and a camera to talk about it, I'm telling you, tutadua hapa hivi sana. So being strong was keeping quiet. Yes, very much. boys and girls, especially as an African, unajua boy child in Africa is expected to be strong. The society expects the boy child to be very quiet. The society expects the boy child to be you be manly. You know, you keeping quiet and you being strong is you being manly. And that is why we are having a lot of issues when it comes to mental health problems. A lot of men are offing themselves, okay? A lot of men are not talking about their issues. A lot of men cry in their hearts. They don't even cry like, you will not see them bawling their eyes out and crying. You know, women, we are very expressive. And that's why we were treated differently. You know, our parents were a little bit softer on us compared to men. Because men were going through a lot of problems. Even when you were younger, you're expected to do so much more. Okay? And even up to today, a man is expected to do so much more. And this one, I'm speaking for men. I feel like every single man who is out there and has a platform or a way to talk about their feelings and their emotions. Growing up in an African setting, that was not something that was considered even normal. How are you talking about your feelings? Kwani you are not a man. Up to today, there's that notion of kwani you are not a man, so you're supposed to be strong. And I feel like strength is expressed in so many different ways. But other than that, girls and boys were treated very differently. Even you remember, sisi tulikuwa sijui tunaenda unyagoni. Unakumbuka unyagoni? Sijui kama wasichana walienda unyagoni. I know that's a very, very strange term. But yeah, wasichana walipeleka unyagoni kufunzwa kukuwa mabibi, how to be a woman and all that. And then men were taken to, you know, go through the circumcision process, and that's where now you're taught you need to be a man. That's why some men are very weird right now, because now strength was taught like wewe sasa ukifanya hivi wewe ni mwanaume, you understand? But that is not the case. Let me tell you, stop crying was like every single time unalia, nyamaza, stop crying. Ukichapwa, alafu nakumbukanga by the mzazi alikuwa anachukua anything anakuchapa nayo. Mzazi anaweza chukua remote, anaweza chukua kiatu, mzazi anaweza kuuma. I don't know if any of you mmechapwa hadi na nini na kisu. Kuna watu walikuwa wanachapwa hadi na kisu, by the way. And it's very sad and it's a funny situation at the same time, because some of the mistakes children used to make ilikuwa very minor, but the way parents used to react, by the way, I don't know kama ni trauma pia wazazi wetu walikuwa wamebeba from back then and whoever raised them, but the way parents used to react towards children back then was ilikuwa vita, ilikuwa war, ilikuwa Vietnam. Okay? No. Okay, personally, talking to my parents about how I felt back then, personally mi nilikuwanga tu naona kama fathe anafaa kunipeleka out, you know. So no, not really. I don't think so. And most of the people never really talked to their parents. You would talk to your favorite auntie. Everybody has their favorite auntie. Growing up, you have your favorite cousin. Growing up, you have your favorite, brother. Those are the people we used to talk to. And if there's something I'd definitely advise, become a best friend to your sibling. Your sibling, you can talk to them about anything. If there's something you cannot tell your mom or your dad, you can tell your sibling. Okay? But I've seen times have changed. People are very good friends with their mother, with their father. And there was somebody else I saw who said that your children are not your friends. I feel like your children need to be your friend, because at the same time, kwani utaongeleshwa aje na mtoto wako kama you guys are not friends. Okay? Because it was something that it was passed to them. It's a behavior that also was bred into them. African parents behave like their parents. Have you ever realized that? Even you, in some ways, you behave like your own parent. There are some things you do and you're like, oh, actually my mom acts like this. Oh, my dad talks like this. So as much as you're trying to unlearn those behaviors, because today we're not just talking about our parents and what they used to do. We are also unlearning those behaviors that they used to practice, and we look like we are carrying them. You understand? Have you ever realized when you have a talkative mom, it's very easy to talk to them. When you have a close dad, it's very easy to talk to them, because also of how they were raised. Okay? And the mentality back then pia ilikuwa different sana. The way parents used to think back then and how they think right now, two different things. Two different people, two different personalities. Personally, me, I will not treat my kid how I was treated by my own parents, you see, or how my relatives used to act towards me, I would not treat my child as that. You know, some of them wanaona ni aibu kubwa sana mtoto kukuja kukufungulia kuhusu vitu zingine. It's a taboo to some situation. You're not supposed to. As a matter of fact, there are some traditions unafaa kuongea ukiwa umeangalia chini ukiongelesha mzazi. Naelewa? And it's a sign of respect, but also respect isikue converted into fear, because ilifika to a point now it's no longer respect, it's fear. It is not culture. As a matter of fact, there are things that are not culture. Let's just be honest. You know, sometimes we Africans hide behind culture, but there are some cultures that kusema ukweli, they are. Okay? And to be honest, culture is just an excuse for our bad behavior. Some of them. Okay? So it's not, it was just survival and a way to also mistreat your kids. All right? Our parents emotionally supported? No, they were not. And you can tell from the way your grandmother treats your mom or the way they act towards each other. Of course, you'd feel there's love. Your mom loved their mom, but they were not supported emotionally. They were just taught on how to be children, act as children, perform their duties as children, but it was not anything beyond that. Okay? You are just being a child, but anything beyond that, it was not really taught. So you cannot also feel supported by your parents, you see. It was passed. As a matter of fact, we saw our parents like vumilia so many things. Okay? So many marriages have survived. Let's be honest with each other. Marriages mingi sana zimesurvive because umeona parents wetu, we admire the way our parents have stayed for 40 years together, 50 years together, but we don't know how they survived through that. Na wanasemanga unajua mapenzi itakangi mtu wako na hii mingi. Ukiwa na kongos mingi unaongea sana, you will not survive marriage. Let me tell you. Most of our parents, especially our moms, they were very humble. Our dads will do the most absurd things out here. They would have like 10 families out there, but your mom would still stick to that marriage. Mwanamke ni kuvumilia. Silence. Kuvumilia ni nini? Silence. You don't talk about anything. You don't say anything. You respect your mom. You respect your, not you respect your mom, you respect your husband. And that's the end of the story. So silence was like, yeah, an excuse for bad behavior and you not even facing your own problems by yourself. You understand? Yeah. We struggle to communicate in relationships because of one thing. Just one thing. You want to maintain the relationship. You don't want to offend your partner. You feel like your partner will leave you. Okay, that is not how I act though, guys. Me, I have a very communicative partner. But what I'm saying is, most of the times people don't communicate in relationships because they are scared of losing their partners. The basis of all that is just you're scared. It's fear. You feel like you'll never find somebody else better than that person you're with. You know, there's something you've planned with that partner, and you feel like if this now happens, the world has ended. Like it's over for me, I'm done. You see, there are people who love so much like that. And have you realized, even loving someone so much like that is rooted from that love that you never got from your parents? You know, you want to give love to somebody the way you were never loved. Okay? Because that is how we were raised. Okay? You not expressing your feelings, you shutting down, is just who you are. And by the way, ni tabia mbaya sana. Wacha tu nikwambie ukweli. Hiyo ni tabia mbaya. Shutting down and not being expressive is not a way of escaping how you feel, okay? It's just you not communicating and you having bad behavior, okay? Hiyo tabia ikome. Koma jamani. My point exactly. We confuse fear with respect. You know, you keep quiet to a point where you don't want to address an issue. Not because you respect that person. Maybe you're feared of the situation. You're scared. You're feared. Wow, guys, I repeat again, nilienda shule. Grammar yangu haikuangi mbaya. What I'm saying is, you're scared of the repercussions, okay? You're scared of the outcome of a particular situation. And fearing someone is toxic. You might respect someone, but if you're scared of them, you don't want to talk to them. That is just, now imagine when I'm toxic, you're just a toxic person. Hey. Unlearning inaanza na wewe. You yourself, what have you done to like unlearn your toxic behaviors? You yourself, what have you done to make sure that you are a better person? You treat people in a better way. You communicate better. How shut down towards people. That's how you unlearn behaviors. And then at the same time, you learn from the experience of your parents, the people who are around you, your friends, wote wanakuanga na tabia fulani yenye wewe upendi. Unlearn that particular behavior. Healthy emotional expression. I don't know how to explain that, but to me, healthy emotional expression can be you communicating in a very respectful way about what has happened to you. Okay? How somebody reacts towards you, your expression is not your problem. Okay? So that is one proper right way. Like that is one of the best hacks actually. Just communicate respectfully. And if somebody reacts in a different way, that's on them. That is not on you. Hiyo ni shida yao. Naelewa? Yeah, personally I just avoid things that don't help me in any way. Things that don't have value. Out there, especially even us as individuals and young people, you having your space is just shutting out the noise. Sindio? Number 2, things that don't help. Vitu hazikusaidii zinafanya nini kwa maisha yako? Get rid of that shit. Get rid of it. Okay? A lot of people tell me that I'm going to be a very strict parent. But mimi huongea kwa nguvu. Unajua, mimi si ati I'm harsh. Okay, I'm not harsh. Mi kwanza by the way, I'm very emotional. Me, I'm such a cry baby. Mtoto wangu ataanza kulia pia mimi nianze kulia. You understand? But I think as a parent and everybody else as a parent, they should just be good parents. Be a better parent to your kid. Okay? Fanya kazi yako kama mzazi, and the rest, let them also learn by themselves. Yeah. But then during these solo episodes, guys, we are going to be talking about so many different things. And remember, opinions are like what? And everybody has it. So, in case you hear that, like, nimesema kitu ambayo haijakufurahisha jamani, comment hapo hivyo and let's have that conversation. Sawa sawa. Other than that, if you have any questions you'd like to talk about, like yesterday I saw somebody talking about generational wealth. Definitely we are going to talk about that. And it's a very interesting topic. Wewe kama Gen Z, in the next 50 years, una plan kuachia mtoto wako nini? Watasema guka yako kufanya kazi, guka yako kuacha shamba, okay? So, you should expect so much more conversation, of course, so much more advice. Mimi kama personally, like me, I'm not a life coach, but I'll tell you, based on the experience I've had, I'll tell you what I know so far, right? Because we are learning from each other each and every single day. Sindio? Yeah, so basically that's just what they should expect. More good vibes, more conversations, and of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Kama kawaida, this is my side of the story.
My side of the story.